brothers and sisters be rounded up and hauled off, and we will not tolerate that.
President-elect Trump's new border czar says mass deportation efforts will begin right here in Chicago.
What is needed in these times is mass protest and resistance against these Trump actions. Millions of people, the decent people in this country, need to actively stand up in the name of humanity and refuse to accept a fascist America supported by these black Trump supporters and these other people.
Kick them out! You guys don't ever get kicked out!
No human being is illegal! No human being is illegal!
Meanwhile,
the target number is arresting as many people as we can possibly arrest with the resources I have. So, for instance, I've already discussed we had over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction. They're priority one. These criminal gangs like Tren de Agua and MS-13, they're a priority. National security threats, they're a priority. So the goal is for ICE officers and other agencies who's going to assist them to arrest as many targeted priority aliens as possible. Here's the problem, though. In sanctuary cities, we can't arrest a criminal in the jail because they won't let us in the jail. So that forces us to go to the neighborhood, which means instead of one agent arresting a bad guy in the jail, we got to send a whole team to the neighborhood. And what happens there? We're going to find others that are non-priority criminals. But guess what? They're going to be arrested too because immigration officers aren't going to be told to walk away from somebody here illegally like this Biden administration has done. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. You don't want to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of the jail. Okay, put ICE officers at great risk to go in the community to arrest this person who has access to what weapons, and they're going to end up arresting more collateral arrests because they have forces in the community.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about border czar Tom Homan, who has been making his rounds in the liberal media discussing his plans for mass deportation. Hopefully, millions of illegal immigrants will be deported during the Trump administration. Okay, the criminals have to go first, of course, but I also hope that it continues from there, right? Because we have to send a message that the United States is not open. You just can't come here and think that you can stay here. You cannot skip the line. We have to have an orderly immigration system.
That 700,000 number, are you confident that you'll be able to deport all of those people?
That's my goal.
But are you confident you'll be able to complete that goal?
I'm confident in the men and women of ICE. They're very good at this, and we're going to arrest as many criminals and gang members as we can find. If we can't find them tomorrow, we'll find them the next day. This operation isn't going to stop. We got 4 years to do this operation, and we'll continue our focus on those with public safety threats, national security threats, then fugitives, then the rest of the people who are not off the table. If you're in the country legally, you got a problem. And I would ask people, if you're in the country legally, you don't have a deportation order yet, then leave voluntarily, because if we have to be forced to issue a deportation, the court actually gives a deportation order, and we have to formally remove you, that puts a bar, a 5 to 20-year bar. You can't re-enter the country. You can't re-enter the country on a visitor visa, a tourist visa. You can have a U.S. citizen petition for you. The smart thing to do, if you haven't got a removal order in the country legally, is leave on your own. That saves a lot of hurt and a lot of harm.
Okay, and I am hoping that Tom Homan does the things that he is currently promising when it comes to carrying out this mass deportation operation. That, in my opinion, I think a lot of the success of this operation is going to come down to the cooperation of these so-called liberal cities that just so happen to be sanctuary cities as well, too. A lot of them have went out of their way to Trump-proof themselves so that they do not cooperate with federal law enforcement at all when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants, even the criminals. But the good news is that Tom Homan does seem to have the cooperation from the mayor of America's largest city, New York City.
That number of people, which I believe is a small number, committing those violent acts, like the gangs that we've mentioned, should not be here.
So let's talk about the gangs. Let's talk about what you agreed to with Tom Homan. Violent criminals will be deported under the Trump mass deportation. What constitutes a violent criminal? Is that someone who is accused, someone who has been convicted, someone who wears gang tattoos? You know, where do you draw the line? Did you make that line with him.
No, we did not. I thought our conversation was a great conversation. Tom and I both sat down, and we both agree on violent individuals should not remain in our country. We have laws here in the city on how that could be handled. My legal team is going to sit down with his legal team to make the determination if an executive order can change that. One of the things he would like to have is that's access to Rikers Island. That's the jail in our city. The law that was passed under the previous administration said that no ICE officer can be in any governmental building. There are exceptions to that. We're looking at those exceptions. That's my core issue. I've said it prior to the election. We can't allow people to come into the country or the city committing violent acts. And those numbers who are doing it, we need to address that. And I'm happy to have a partner in Tom to see how do we address that in a real way.
Yeah, see, now you heard that. Okay, we're going to see how this goes, right? We're going to see how this partnership between New York City and the federal government, the Trump administration, works, because I think that's going to have a lot to do with how smoothly this operation will go and how much this operation will cost, which is something that the liberal media seems to be concerned about, despite the fact that they're never concerned about the cost of anything that Democrats want to do. So without further ado, let's get into this.
The public safety threats are plenty, and it's going to keep us busy.
You worked under President Obama, as I noted. He actually gave you the government's highest civil service award at one point in your time there. As you know, he deported a lot of people. His highest number was just over 400,000 in a year. How many do you expect to deport this time?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not in the administration. I mean, we don't have control. I don't know what the budget is. I don't know how, for instance, I know that ICE is $300 million in the hole right now. We need Congress to give us some money to get this done because I don't know how many resources I have. I don't know how much money I'm going to have to buy beds. I don't know how much money I'm going to have to buy transportation contracts. That's why it's imperative on Congress and reconciliation to give us money we need to do this. I think the mandate given by the American people from the election is they want this done. A majority of Americans think this is the right thing to do. A vast majority of Americans think public safety threats that are here illegally should be removed. So it all depends on the funding I get from the Hill.
And I will say this about that. For this separate funding for the mass deportations, there needs to be individual votes. I don't want to see it packaged up in some big omnibus bill. No. There needs to be an individual vote. We need to see which politicians are on board with the mass deportations, which politicians are on board with the agenda that the American people voted for, and which ones are not. I don't want to hear no excuses, okay? Oh, well, they paired it up with this, so therefore I have to vote against it because of X, Y, and Z. Nah. Whatever amount is spent on the mass deportations needs to be voted on as a single budget item. So we get full transparency on who supports this and who does not support this. It is going to be the best way to expose the rhinos, right? It's going to be the best way to expose them, okay? And Democrats also will suffer from that as well, too, because I guarantee you a lot of their voters are on board with the mass deportations, too.
So you haven't gotten any briefings from people at the Department of Homeland Security right now to tell you what that looks like as far as the number of ICE agents or the number of beds available to you?
No, I know the current number of beds available. I know how many agents are out there right now, but I'm looking, we need many more detention beds than what are currently available. I mean, on the Trump administration, we had over 55,000 people in detention at any given day, and they're down to less than 30,000 now. So I know there's a certain amount of beds that are available, but we're going to need many more beds. The landing teams have just started working with the agencies and departments, so we'll be gathering information, a lot of information next couple of weeks, which will help me in my planning process.
How many more beds do you think you'll need?
We need at least 100,000 beds, and because of beds will turn over in 30 days, which gives us a free bed every day. But I'm not going to put a limit on it. I'm telling the minimum we need 100,000 beds because we got a big population to look for, and you know, 700,000 criminals alone.
And ICE has about 6,000 deportation officers nationwide. Tell me if that number is different than the numbers that I looked into. How many more deportation officers do you believe that you would need for what you want to carry out here?
Look, the bottom line is the more I got, the more I can do. So it's just over 6,000 ERO officers. Well, let's remember you got over 8,000 HSI officers who are also ICE officers who also have Title VIII authority, immigration authority. We're looking for help from other agencies. We're looking for help, and I've been clear on this. I'd like to see DOD assist us. DOD has assisted just about every presidential administration. So DOD could be a force multiplier. The men and women of ICE that carry a badge and gun that are doing administrative duties like processing and transportation and infrastructure building, if we can get DOD to help us, that frees those badge and guns up to get to the street to arrest the bad guys. So it all depends what I have available day one, and we're working on that now.
And again, when you're talking about how to pay for that, the efficient thing to do would be really to take some of that money from the Department of Defense, right? Take some of that money out of the military budget, because this is a military operation. It is an operation to protect our national security. That's the way it should be treated. So, hey, we can cut some of the waste, fraud, and abuse out of the Pentagon, okay, out of the military budget for things that they really don't need. Then, yeah, we can fund the mass deportations. I guarantee you, for however much the mass deportations cost, I guarantee you can find that amount of waste, fraud, and abuse within the military budget to allocate to this mass deportation operation. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. So, again, I find it fascinating how Caitlin Collins is questioning Tom Homan in a way that she never would question a Democrat about their plans or anything that they want to do, right? When you talk about Ukraine, do they ever ask these detailed questions about what the funding is going to be used for in Ukraine, right? Do they ever ask any of these details? Again, it's amazing how that works. These people want all the details. They want all the T's crossed, the I's dotted, for something to protect the American people, for actual national security, to protect this country. But to protect somebody else's country, they don't ask nearly as many questions. Fascinating.
And will you ask the military for planes to help with those flights as well?
Absolutely. I'll ask them for help in transportation on ground and in the air. They have a lot of planes, and I think this is, I think what's happened on our southern border in the last 4 years is the biggest national security vulnerability this country's seen. Even the FBI director agrees with that. So I think DOD has a perfect role in protecting national security. Now, they're not going to be out arresting people, but they can be a force multiplier in doing things that we need them to do that doesn't require a badge and a gun.
Okay, you say they won't be out arresting people. That's an important point. On this effort overall, in terms of what you believe you need, and you're obviously deeply familiar with how this works and what's ahead of you, you had previously said about $86 billion was the minimum this project will cost. Do you have a better estimate now as you've been developing your plan?
I never said $86 billion. That was a CNN reporter that said $86 billion. I don't know what that number is right now. Again, we're working on the plan. Again, depends on how many resources I have and what the cost is going to be. But I'll say this, $86 billion, I mean, what price you put on the young women that have been murdered and raped in this country? What price you put on, the lives of all these little girls that, there's numerous cases. What price you put on national security? Because we know a record number of people on terrorist watch that's been called on the southern border. We also know there's over 2.2 million gotaways. How many of them came from countries sponsoring terror? What price you put on the thousands of angel moms and dads who their children were buried by their parents because their children were killed by someone that's not supposed to be here? There's a lot of cost factor. But let me say this.
Yeah, what is the price that you put on the hundreds of thousands of people that have died in this country from a fentanyl overdose, from drug overdoses? Again, that's the crazy part about this that I don't understand. Like, because of the illegal immigration problem, we actually have hundreds of thousands of people in this country dying per year. This is an epidemic, right? But again, we're not treating it like it is, right? Like, imagine a war where you have 100,000 American civilians being lost every single year. That is what this is, okay? That's what this is.
This would be an expensive operation, But in the long run, it would be a huge tax savings on the American people, because right now they're spending billions of dollars on free airline tickets, free hotel rooms, free medical care. Not talking about our education system, our trauma in hospitals, and
sir,
and that's in perpetuity. And that's in perpetuity.
Well, and to be clear, I understand you'll be making that argument about why you need this money to Congress. I was just curious how much you're guessing it'll cost, because obviously, as you noted, it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to ask Congress for that money. I believe you had told Fox Business $86 billion was the estimate.
$86 billion at a minimum, I said. That's a minimum.
Okay, I was just quoting you. I just want to make sure that we're clear that I was quoting you correctly on what the baseline of that was. But I think in the question...
You were quoting me directly. You were quoting me directly. There was also a question that was asked by a CNN reporter.
Okay, got it. Yeah, obviously this is a huge interest. It's a huge interest to people just in terms of how much it'll cost. But on the numbers, I am curious what your target is, because there are different estimates of how many undocumented immigrants are in the country and you have said everyone is on the table. If it's 11 million people and what that number looks like, what is your goal over the 4 years of the total number of people that you would like to? If you have the number of beds that you would like, if you have the number of ICE deportation officers and others that can help you with that, what is your ultimate number of that deportation that you would like to see when you're done with your job?
I don't have a number. We want to arrest as many people as we can that are in the country illegally, again, based on prioritization. We want to arrest every criminal, every gang member that's here illegally that's a public safety threat. We want to arrest every fugitive, those who had due process at great taxpayer expense and have an ordered deportation but didn't leave and became a fugitive. We got over 1.5 million of those. And look, we got millions of people here illegally. I've said if you're here illegally, you're not off the table. I mean, it's a violation of law. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. And after we give you
but
due
you don't
process,
have a number that you'd like to see.
An immigration judge.
1 year from tonight, you don't have a number that you'd like to say, this many people have been deported on my watch.
No, I don't have a number. I want to arrest as many people as we can with the resources we have. Want to be the most efficient we can based on prioritization. There's no limit.
Yeah, aka all of them, right? There's no limit. There's no limit on the amount of illegals that we're going to deport, okay? There's no limit. See, once you start coming out here and talking about, well, I want to do 1 million a year or 2 million, they're going to start, again, they're going to use that against you in various ways. Okay, if you don't deport 1 million a year, they say, look, he broke his promise. He didn't deport 1 million a year, right? And they're not going to give a damn about the actual reasoning behind it, right? Whether or not, the Democrats went out of their way to try to stop it, right? To undermine the mass deportations, okay? The sanctuary cities and stuff like that. They're not going to give a damn. They're just going to say, oh, well, he just didn't do it, right? But if he starts to do more than what he says, let's say he says, I'm going to deport 1 million illegals a year, right? And he deports 1.5 million illegals per year. They'll be like, oh, no, he's deporting too many illegals. He only said 1 million, but he's doing 1.5. 2, it's too many, right? That's what they'll do. So it's really damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you might as well just say, hey, everybody's fair game. If you're here illegally, then you've been put on notice that it is probable that you're going to get deported. And if you're a criminal, then it's almost certain, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.